In the drug world, you have pushers and you have users, and it's usually not good for somebody to be both. You kind of have to choose. In the Logos world, it's essential. If I want to be a pusher of Logos, somebody who thinks that the tool ought to be used by many, many more Christians in the church, especially those who teach the Bible and study it carefully, then it's essential that I also be a user. I'm going to do something today for Logos users, but it's going to go on my personal channel, because this is an unofficial, unsupported, though known among our leadership, hack, kind of, that uses alternate apps to control Logos from the keyboard. This is exciting. Even if you don't use Logos, you'll get to see some of the things that it does. But if you do, and if you're like me, somebody who used to love BibleWorks, I was actually a BibleWorks trainer for years. I would do 6-hour-long seminars on BibleWorks on Saturdays for seminary students. Did that many times. That's kind of how I got into the Bible software business. You're going to love this. This picks up one of the major, probably the major piece of functionality that I always missed in Logos. I love Logos. I've loved it for many, many years, but there was something I wanted to do. I wanted to be able to control Logos from the keyboard only. I'm going to show you how I did this with the help. Big hat tip to a guy named Vince Mitchell, who did the programming here, and I just expanded what he did. I'm going to limit my comments to the Mac, which is what I use, and Alfred, which is what I've been using for many years. I've been a PowerPack user for many, many years, but this can be done in Raycast and LaunchBar, I believe, on the Mac, and I know that the basic functionality is also available in Windows. I just don't exactly know how to access it. So I totally welcome those nerdy folks in the comments who'd like to chime in. I think with the basic tool that I'll be offering you, you'd be able to do the same thing. I need to explain a couple basic concepts in Logos Bible software that I will now turn to. This is the powerful built-in tool that we'll be using with an external app. If you look at the 3 little dots in the upper right-hand corner of nearly any tab, you'll see all kinds of cool stuff. I'm often using the link set, for example, so that I can look up the same Bible passage in multiple different translations and original language texts, or commentaries for that matter. Usually for me, it's Bible translations. Look at location as. You can copy as URL, HTML, L4 wiki, or reading list. We're going to use the L4. Basically, I can copy down a link that will send me or somebody else, as long as they have that same book, to that same spot later on. And that works not just for Bible versions, but also for searches. Isn't this amazing? Well, not until you see what it can do. It's with Alfred, however, that I can take this functionality to the next level, sending myself all over Logos just from the command line. I'm going to keep this fairly simple and short. An easier way to see it is to call up Alfred and then hit Command comma for the preferences, and then you can look at my workflows. I've got a number of them here. I actually have to use accordance to do something I'll tell you about in a bit, but the Logos one, I'm super excited about that, so I'm doing this video. There are 3 different columns here. The easiest ones to understand actually goes right to left. If I type in OCSB and then any Bible reference, this will open the CSB to that reference. OESV, OKJV, same thing. So if I type OKJV and I type Romans 1:1, I don't even have to use a colon, bam, we're there. And because I actually have these in link sets, let me make sure I do this one. Oh, I don't. It'll open that up in the others as well. I can actually call it back up and just replace it with Acts 2 whatever, and here we go. It's opening everything in link set A to that same reference, but actually that's because I opened the King James to it. And actually I have shortcuts for those because I'm opening up the ESV and the King James so frequently, I can also just do it with E or with K. So if I type E, Romans 5:3, bam, I am right there. And with the new speed improvements in Logos 10 on the M1 Mac that I have, it is fast. That is what I've always been wanting for years and years. In fact, this little tool with Alfred came out a couple years ago, and I'm just kicking myself that I didn't find it sooner. If you look back in Alfred, that's the far right column, and I've got shortcuts for you. You're gonna be able to download this for free to the NA28, although you have to have it, of course. The BHS, that's the Hebrew Bible, Scrivener's Greek New Testament, the SBL Greek New Testament, which is the one I tend to use most frequently because I find its apparatus, most conducive to my needs most often. the NLT, the New King James, the NIV, and the NIV 84, the NASB, the Old King James. KJV stands for open, not old. And I have the NIV 84 and 2011 differentiated by the little code you see there. You just type those letters and type a reference, and you got it. So NIV, Romans 5:2, and there we go. Okay, it'll open it up even if it's not already open in a tab. Then the middle column is search. I will start actually with the ones that are obvious. So if I do SNASB and I search for Lord Jesus Christ, it pulls it up so quickly. And I'm searching, in this case, the 1995 update, of course. I haven't set this up for every single Bible version, just the ones that I use most frequently. If I go back to Alfred, you can see that I've got search KJV, search ESV. I don't use that actually as often as I use the open command because I usually know where I want to go, but I certainly do use it frequently. And actually, SKJV is the one I'm using the most because, believe it or not, viewers of my channel might be surprised to find that most of my scripture memory was in the King James. Most of the phrases that come to me, I think, come to me in King James. But then there are times when I'm not sure what translation it's coming from. I think this is happening more over time because it has been about, oh boy, since 1999. What is that at this point? Coming up on 25 years since the King James was my main squeeze. So if I remember a phrase, but I don't remember for sure whether it's King James or not, I can do this, STB, for search top Bibles. I can search top Bibles for the word liberty. Let's just try that one. And sure enough, all of my chosen top Bibles, which are chosen in the library feature, you can go to prioritize resources. Where is that? Yep, prioritize resources. And I have ESV, King James, NIV, CSB, and NASB 95. I have a couple others listed, but these are the top 5 are my top 5 Bibles. That you can do with this Alfred integration using this workflow that I have a link to in the show notes. Also, I will go back to Alfred and show you, here we go, BibleWorks users. Do you recognize this? That's a period, that's an apostrophe. Watch this. If I type .liberty, I'm going to find all, in my top Bibles, all the references to liberty. And it's an and search, just like it was in BibleWorks. So if I search for Christ made us free, it's going to find just that one because, but look, there's an intervening word there, and it was still able to find all of those 4 words. Love that. Okay, then if I type in the apostrophe, it's just like in BibleWorks, where I have to type, if I type Christ made us free, it's not going to find anything. Yep, it can do a fuzzy search, which will almost certainly find it, but also finds a little bit more than I want to find. It still got the result I wanted right at the top, but I'd have to put that hath in there. And then I'm searching for exactly that phrase. Look, it puts it in quotation marks. I mean, that is just gold. I'm just so excited about this. I'm using this all the time. The period and the apostrophe were coded into my muscle memory after years of using BibleWorks to search for all kinds of stuff. Now I can do it in Logos. I am so excited. Let's go back to Alfred, and this is the 3rd column here, the one on the left. I can also search my whole Logos library. If I type SL, that will search the content of my whole Logos library. That's everything. So let's try it. Christ made us free. That's not just Bibles, that's everything in my 30,000 plus resource Logos library. All kinds of resources are going to be coming up through that. That is a very powerful tool, but a little bit too powerful. Really, it's not often that I want to search my whole Logos library. It would only typically be if I am searching for something very narrow, and therefore I'm sure I won't get a ton of hits. I can also search, if I do LM, I can search Logos Media. I don't tend to use that, but that was put there by Vince Mitchell. Apparently some people do. I can search my Logos library for a particular book or resource. So I just bought, actually, Herman Bavinck, Reformed Dogmatics. If I type Bavinck, I can find it. You know what? I didn't realize I had Christian Worldview by Bavinck. That is really great. When did I get that? That's actually one of the small problems, but also delights of having Logos. Sometimes you don't even realize and remember what you have because it's not on your shelf. I can also open a passage guide to any passage. Bam, I'm in Romans 5:8, and it's going to pop up. This takes a little longer because it's actually searching so much of your library. It's going to show all my Romans commentaries, and I have more, and I have more, and I have more, And I'm sure I have way more. There's a lot that I have. I have these prioritized as well. The Lexham Research Commentary is at the top. These are not in a very strict order, but basically my top ones are at the top. So Moo, I actually have his first edition and his second edition. I've got Morris, I've got Cruz, I got Mounts, I got Longenecker, I've got James D.G. Dunn, I got Tom Schreiner, got F.F. Bruce, I got all the good stuff. And it actually was comparatively inexpensive over the years because with the Logos you benefit from economies of scale. I can also open the text comparison window. So if I open the text comparison window to Romans 4:8, bam, I'm seeing all of the Bible versions that I normally check, and I toss in some ones I hardly ever talk about on the channel in there. I also make sure to have original language text in there, right in the text comparison window. This is very similar then to the way BibleWorks used to work, where this is basically the way that you're seeing it. You can arrange it differently, like different layouts. I don't like that. I like to go back to the way that BibleWorks did it. That's kind of what got to my heart first, and so that's what I use. This is the basic set of tools, and if you understand what I did just now, I'm not going to explain how to install an Alfred workflow. It's not that difficult. If you have Alfred, yell and double click it, and pretty much you're good to go. But I cannot support this. I can't be answering bunches of questions about it. I'm really sorry. So you can go look online, look in the Logos forums. Vince Mitchell did talk about this. I can't offer his services either. But if you can install it, you can use it. And if you can sort of decode what we've done, you can see here that you can just change some of this info. The info was derived from that little menu that I showed you where you copy an L4 link and then you put query in brackets for, as a placeholder for when you want to put Romans 5:8 or, the name of an author or something in there. But what this has done is it has turned Logos back into BibleWorks for me in the most important ways. I like quick. I want my computer to be fast. And when I want to find something in the Bible, I was actually, instead of using Logos, this app that I paid a lot of money for, of my own money, long before I ever came to the company. And yes, I get free upgrades, and that's a very nice perk of working at the company. But I've put thousands of dollars into Logos books, and I still buy Logos books with my own money on a regular basis. I actually have to use my personal, Chime card that I use for my budget. I still do that because I want to have good resources in Logos, and I want them to be in my personal library, not just my work library, which I actually also have. I want to be able to call up stuff fast. And I was using Google. I was using the ESV website. I, for years, was using the ESV API until it actually broke inside Alfred, I think because of a change in Mac OS. That was really neat. I could call up Bible verses. Still to this day, I am using Accordance. I keep it open just so that I can copy Bible verses. This is how I do it. And I can't support this either. I got this from faithful channel viewer and big time friend of mine. I really appreciate Omar Schrock. I can type KJV and Romans 5:8. You have to type colons in Accordance. That's something I was always kind of annoyed by. And it's now copied to the clipboard. And I can just paste it in easily wherever I am in a word processing document. That's really handy. That's the thing I'd like for Logos to do. I have talked to the brass, or the key figures in the brass, about doing this in Logos, and it is a possibility, but I was told that I represent probably only 5% of the users, and I trust the person who told this to me. He's my longtime friend and fellow graduate of my alma mater, ABD in Theology, Phil Gons, who's got a great blog whenever he posts to it. He's a good friend to Annie Naselli, who's also a friend of mine. Phil's judgment is something I and many other people at the company have learned to trust very much. All the same, I wish he were wrong. I wish that there were many other people who liked to control Logos and all of their apps from the command line. I found out many, many years ago that it's a lot faster to use the keyboard than it is to use the mouse, and that was one thing I liked about BibleWorks, even though I'm not going to put down BibleWorks, but let's just say that Logos has put a lot of energy into UI UX, user experience, and user interface design. I actually have friends who work on that team, and I've worked with one of them especially on outside design projects on a number of occasions, and he's just excellent. I just love the stuff that he does. I love working in a beautiful environment with nice typography, with nicely laid out windows, and artfully, considered design. But I had all that for years, and I was still lacking this really important thing. I wanted to be able to control Logos from the keyboard, and now I can. Now, I want to give a final word to my viewers who don't have Logos. I sometimes interact with folks online and discover that they have good, ability with the Bible. They're actually able to use the original languages, and I'm just shocked to discover that they don't have Logos or another quality Bible program, which I would take to be pretty much only Accordance and BibleWorks. I think YouVersion and Olive Tree, have their place, and I certainly use websites all the time. But for serious work, a lot of people are like me. We turn to Logos. I just don't know how you can work, without what I hate to call professional, but that is really kind of the word, professional tools. Well-made tools that are reliable and that are powerful. But I don't think Logos is for everybody, and I don't want people to plunk down a bunch of money for it and then be disappointed in it. But let me just say a little something here. For years I would have said, and this still isn't far from the truth, that the main value of Logos Bible software is all the books that you buy. So I would often compare it to an electronic bookshelf or a bookshelf with a robot arm that, can race around. You tell the robot, I want books on such and such. I want to search for, Christian liberty. And the robot arm will go racing around and grabbing books and opening them for you and putting them on your desk. I mean, that's pretty awesome, isn't it? And so I would say to them that that's very valuable, but what if there are no books or poor books on your shelves? Then you're not going to get as much value, and that is still all true. I would tell people too, don't be in the baseball card collecting mentality with electronic books. You want to get good quality stuff. And I have done that, and I'm very, very grateful for it. I'm always using the dictionaries and lexicons, slightly difference there, encyclopedias. I'm always using commentaries. I'm certainly in the journals a fair bit. I'm definitely using the monographs. I read books in Logos, especially on my iPad in bed at night while my wife is trying to fall asleep. Don't mind the children's noises in the background. I just can't always keep that away. But in my actual day-to-day work, which for me is writing articles and writing a lot of YouTube scripts, as you know, I script just about everything I do on this channel. This is kind of an exception. I scripted some of this video, not most of it. I am constantly, instead of using those resources, although I definitely use them, I'm using more Bibles. I'm searching Bibles and I'm opening Bibles. I'm looking at multiple Bible translations at once. I'm looking at Greek and Hebrew texts. I'm looking at different Greek and Hebrew texts. I am running Bible word studies, looking at the usage of just one Greek or Hebrew word and trying to check up on the lexicons like BDAG or Halot that I use for Greek and Hebrew study. So I have found that for most of my use for a good while, yes, I've got to have those books and you can pry them out of my cold dead hands, but I'm actually using the Bible search tools and the Bible opening tools. I'm just all the time in the Bible. I think that's a good thing and not a bad thing. And I just don't know how I would do it without the professional tools that Logos puts at my disposal. If I have to turn to the free tools or the online tools, I just find myself frustrated. I don't have access to the most responsible and careful and actually good-looking, typographically careful editions of any of the Bibles and original language texts that I like to use. The Bible Word Study tool, too, is something that I use all the time, and I absolutely love it. I can just pick a random word. Let's see here. Exult. Right-click on that. There's the word kalkaomai. Let's see how that word gets used by selecting the lemma form and then running a Bible word study. And I will make that go full screen with the keyboard shortcut that I love. And here we go. I can look it up in lexicons, but now I can see how it's translated. I can see how often it appears. In this case, I'm actually looking at how it's translated in the ESV. I'm also frequently looking at how it's translated in the King James Version. Of course, it's translated with a greater variety of words. That's very interesting. From glorieth to, of course, boasting. It looks like very interesting. Glory and glorying is just much more common, whereas boasting is was the most common gloss in the ESV. I'm always looking at that. Then I'm looking at the Septuagint. I'm seeing what Hebrew words were translated with that Greek word in the Greek Septuagint that was before Christ. I'm looking at all of the different words that are formed from the same root because of syntagmatic and paradigmatic relations among words. I don't tend to use this as often, but sometimes I do. I want to see what are the objects that people glory in, or the subjects, who glories, okay? Case frame analysis, I don't tend to use. Preposition, I don't tend to use. Lemma in passage, however, here I'm going to see commentaries that actually reference this Greek word and therefore might have a helpful discussion of it. That's really valuable. And I can do more textual searches right from here. Of course, I can go right to the Septuagint, which is the one I do most frequently by far. Apostolic Fathers probably second, and then definitely I'll check Josephus on occasion. But that's normally because he's referenced in BDAG, and I want to see that reference for myself. That is what I am doing day in and day out, all the time. I just don't know how I would do it efficiently and beautifully without Logos Bible software. So again, link in the show notes for those of you who are interested in using this Alfred Workflow. And if you want more information on how to use it in Raycast or Launchbar or whatever on Windows, I don't know because I haven't used a Windows computer in a long, long time, then you can go searching online. I'm confident you can do the basically the same kind of thing. For those of you who made it this far, actually this very day as you watch, if you're watching the day I release this, I am on my way to India for a ministry trip, and I hope to be able to shoot a video or two over there. I've actually worked up the scripts already, and we'll probably be working a little bit more on the plane, so that's a little something to look forward to. Thanks for joining me.